Hi, I've only had a drum kit for about 5 or 6 weeks. Before that, I bought a practice pad and was working on that. Like most people, I wanted to find some really good books for beginners, so I did some searching on what are the best books for beginning drummers. The first book I came across was Stick Control for the Snare Drummer by George Lawrence Stone. Everybody would say that that is a fantastic book. It is great for hand coordination. However, it is purely that. It's only for snare drummer. It's not going to teach you how to play the drums. It will teach you hand coordination, but it won't do anything with your feet. I found that really helpful, especially with the practice pad, obviously. But once I got the drum kit, I wanted something a bit more. So I did another search on best beginners drum set book and came up with the Drum Set Musician by Rod Morgenstein and Rick Mattingly. It's called The Musical Approach to Learning Drum Set, so it sounds like a beginner's drum book. However, it's basically an encyclopedia of drum patterns. It's got 3 sections in it. There's an 8-beat drum pattern section, 16-beat and triplets, and there are loads of examples. They're all 1 bar long. For example, in the 8-beat section, you've got the 8-beat variation and a 4-beat variation of each pattern, so everything's doubled. Now if you do what I did, which was basically start at the beginning and start working your way through thinking I'll practice a few at a time, you realise how long it is going to take you to get through the whole book. There isn't a how to use this book in the book, unfortunately. There are actually 6 songs in the book, because at the end of each section there's 2 songs relating to what you've learnt in that section. However, I didn't find that a very good, useful, progressive learning book. I then looked around again, started looking at the grades stuff, and came across the Trinity Introducing Drum Kit book. Now, in most instruments, I'm pretty sure Trinity do an initial grade, but in drum kit they don't. They start, the first grade is grade 1. So what they've done is they've actually done a tuition book that brings you from scratch. I mean, it really is from scratch up to grade 1. The thing at the back of the book says, congratulations, you're now ready to start learning the grade 1 pieces. So obviously it doesn't, getting to the end of this book doesn't mean you have reached grade 1. It means you can start learning the grade 1 pieces. I found this book really helpful. It is very good, lots of exercises, very useful exercises, a few what it calls performance pieces. By the time I got to the end of the second performance piece, possibly the third, I moved on to Trinity Rock and Pop Drums initial book, because I thought, well, you know, if you get to grade 1 by the end of that book, then halfway through will get you to initial. I had started just looking at it and thought, well, I can play these, so I started playing them. I was originally going to sort of work both books in parallel, but ended up I just worked my way through all the Rock and Pop exam pieces. And then when I finished those, I went back to the Introducing Drum Kit book. And then I ordered, at that time, when I finished the Rock and Pop book, I ordered the Rock School Drums debut book. Now the thing, I meant initially I was going to do the Rock School straight after the Rock and Pop. However, because of postage, I ended up finishing the Trinity Introducing Drum Kit book before the Rock School book came. I'm still working my way through. What's fascinating about this is both the Trinity and the Rock and Pop, which is also by Trinity, they focus on the hands. There's not a lot of kick drum difficulty. The kick drum is kept fairly simple and it's mostly hands, but you're going to do crash cymbal, ride cymbal, all your toms. You're going to have some feels on toms and things like that. So it feels like you're learning drums. You're doing a proper drumming thing. Strange about the Rock School book, but good, is the other way around. All of the songs only use hi-hat, snare and kick, but there's a lot of difficulty in the kick. There's a lot of kick drum variation. And I think the 3 books complement each other really well. And it's worth getting all 3 because you are going to broaden your skill as a drummer and have a really good platform for moving on to grade 1. What I would recommend as well with all of the book, not necessarily the Introducing Drum Kit book, but with the Rock and Pop and the debut, because they're not actually supposed to be a structured teaching book. They're exam pieces, so they're supposed to be fairly consistent. I would suggest have a play through them all, just a little play through, and see what you think of each one. Because, for example, in the debut book, Rock School debut, I think the last song in the book, which is called Hoedown, is actually the easiest, and therefore it's probably the best place to start. Because otherwise, what will happen, you'll tackle a really hard piece, spend ages on it, get it good, and then come to an easy piece and be bored with it and not find it, not stimulating. I think it's best to start with the easy pieces. Also, because the techniques used are fairly consistent throughout the book, what it's testing you on, there's very similar patterns in what you're going to be tested on. By the time you've learnt them on the easy pieces, you make it into a fairly progressive book. So something else I want to touch on fairly briefly is how to structure a practice session. I would suggest you break it into 3 pieces. You have song practice, rudiments and exercises, and I would suggest you rotate them. So one day you start with songs, next day start with rudiments, next day start with exercise, and make that the main part of your practice each day, because that otherwise, the temptation is just quickly run through your rudiments rather than give it a full good session every now and then. And what I tend to do is I tend to have, quite often have 2 or 3 practices in a day. So if I do a heavy rudiments at first and then exercise and then songs, the next 2 practices will be all songs, because that's the bit I like doing. And that's why I need to discipline myself to do the other bits, because otherwise the songs will get it all. Quick note on rudiments as well. There are so many of them, and you think as a beginner that I need to know them all now. According to the grades systems, and if you go on Trinity's website, you can actually pull out the prospectus for drums, and it tells you their whole grading system of what you need to know for each grade. And they say you only need, for grade 1, you only need to know singles, doubles and paradiddles. Now you may want to learn more. I'm happy to learn in a progressive way and start with those. And even in the exams, they're only asking for 70 beats a minute. So I think in initial grade it's 70 beats a minute, but you're going to do 8 beats in the bar or quavers. If you're doing grade 1, it's 70 beats a minute. That's for a crotchet count, a 4 beats a bar count, but you're going to be doing 16 beats per bar or semi-quavers. So it's not taxing. It really isn't too taxing to start with, but it's going to give you, instead of just trying to play rudiments as fast as you can, it's worth playing them slow as well, or at a moderate speed, say 70 beats a minute, and really emphasise getting that precise timing, because you're developing muscle tone, the fast twitch fibres, muscle fibres. It's the same as going to the gym and weight training, but you're doing it in a different way. You're doing it with a drumstick and doing it for speed, and it's about getting that even, and also dynamics, being able to do it really gently at different volumes, going sort of quiet, a little bit louder, half loud, a little bit louder to loud. You need to be able to play all the dynamic range and not just at one. Anyway, hope you found that useful. I certainly struggled when I started trying to find a decent way of teach yourself. I didn't really want to go down the route of having lessons, partly because I can't afford them, but these books are really good. I do like working from books. I know there's a whole load of free drum videos online, but it's all technique and stuff, and what I really want to be doing is playing songs. If you play drums, it's because you want to play drums in a group and play a song, not because you just want to sit there doing techniques all day. Okay, well, thank you, and I hope you found this helpful.